everyone. Thank you for being here. I think we may still have one or two more that trickle in, but we want to honor your time and appreciate you all being here on time. Many of you were early, and we're going to jump right into things this morning, but I'm going to open us up in prayer. We are here to learn today, but we are powerless without the Holy Spirit among us. So we want to invite the Holy Spirit into our time this morning. So please feel free to pray along with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to gather as leaders and ministers and pastors from across the state of Kentucky into this wonderful training facility. Father, we invite your Holy Spirit into this presence and into this time, Father, that you would instruct us, that you would open our minds and our hearts to receive what you would have for each of us, Lord, that you would bless our ministries, that you would bless our churches, that you would grow them, that you would expand our influence and our impact in each of our communities, Father, that we would see lives transformed by the power of Jesus Christ. Lord, make our learning time clear and productive today. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. Before we get into the content, I'm going to give you a quick commercial about a Kentucky event that will be new for our calendar next year. You may have seen some emails come out about it, may have even seen some information pop up on social media. It is called Empower, and it will be July 16th, 17th, and 18th, and it will be here at Camp Nikayo. And it is first and foremost a conference for our teens and our young adults. However, we also have a specific pastors and leaders track during that weekend. So as a pastor or as a leader, you have a couple of options if you want to participate. You can come all weekend and be a part of all of the main services, and your cost for that weekend is only $50. And that's going to cover your meals, that's going to cover your lodging, that's going to get you a t-shirt. And I would say you'd be hard-pressed to find a weekend conference anywhere else for $50. But we also know that a lot of our pastors, it can be difficult for them to be away on a Sunday morning. And so we have the Saturday one-day option, which will start at 9:45, and it will conclude at 6 o'clock. That's going to get you 6 CECs in the month of January. So you're already going to be 25% of your way done in 2026 with the CECs that you need to get if you come and participate. And that Saturday one-day option is only $25. And again, that covers your meals for that day. Has a little bit of a later start time for you, gets you out of here early enough that if you need to get back to your home church for Sunday morning, you can be there. But we want our teenagers to be here, we want our young adults to be here, and we want our pastors and leaders to be here for that as well. So mark it on your calendars and start communicating that with your churches. For our first session today, we're going to be talking about strategic planning, specifically creating and communicating a church calendar and special events throughout the year. You all know as well as I do that the calendar can get really busy really quickly in just your personal life. You add into that ministry things and it can get overloaded really quickly. Part of our job as the leaders is to create and communicate calendars in advance for our church members, because if we're not doing that, then we are placing a barrier for people in our community and people in our church to participate in the ministry initiatives that we have going on. And so that takes intentional planning on our part. You will learn about Stetson Harper that I am a planner. I am a type A personality, organization that is in the top of my strengths when it comes to ministry and leadership. So I just want to share some things today that have worked really well in my ministry, and hopefully that will bless you as well. So the rationale behind this is just kind of what I shared for you. It's a crucial aspect of leadership is to have that planning, to plan in advance. What is the entire year going to look like? I like to plan the calendar a year at a time. And have it ready so that January 1, everybody in the church already knows all of the main events that are going to happen. So you will learn in my teaching style as well that I like discussion and I like feedback. So there will be some times where I ask you if you have questions. There will also be some times where I ask you a question and I want your feedback. So does your church have a specific calendar right now? And you can just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay, so we're about half and half here in the room. Half of us do, half of us don't. Do you, if you, for those of you that have a church calendar, do you have a specific system or process for updating that calendar? Okay, I see a thumbs up. See, maybe, maybe we do, maybe we don't. Not too sure on that. When was the last time your calendar was updated? 2 weeks ago. Monthly, okay. And who has access to your calendar? And think about really the everyday congregant, or even perhaps the person who is checking your church out from a distance. Statistics and research show us that people evaluate our church by our online presence before they ever step foot onto our property. They are looking at your Facebook, they are looking at your website, they are just driving by your church to see, is this a place I want to physically show up? And so if somebody looks at your website, can they see what events you have going on? Can they see a calendar and the ministries that you have? If we don't have those things, it's not a condemnation against anyone. It's just a point where we need to be aware of, we need to improve so that we can be successful and effective in ministry. When you are creating your church calendar, you need to have a specific system and a process. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is that when we are looking at events in a calendar, everything that we have the opportunity to do needs to flow through our church's vision and our mission statement. So I'll speak about the context of Church Alive, where I pastor, because that's what I know the best. But at Church Alive, our mission statement is to know God, to make disciples, and serve the world. So every time there is an event possibility, we filter it through those three statements. How does it help us know God? How does it help us make disciples? How does it help us serve the world? If it meets one of those three criteria, and it might meet all three criteria, then yes, that's something that we can add to our calendar. If we find in evaluating that this really doesn't help us know God, this really doesn't help us make disciples, this really doesn't help us serve the world, this is not the best use of our time. This is not the best use of our finances. This is not the best use of the time of the people in our congregation. And so ask yourself some questions when you're looking at the calendar and you're planning. How will this event help support the mission of the church? Do we have the capacity to execute this event? Do we have the finances necessary for it? Do we have the volunteers necessary for it? You may dream up the best outreach that your community has ever seen. If you don't have the finances or the volunteers to do it, that is maybe something to plan for in year 2 or in year 3 or in year 4. Set it as a vision in the future. Don't just get rid of it and forget about it if it's a great outreach, but you have to be mindful of that. We're getting ready to do our 3rd fall festival at Church Alive, and it has grown every single year. The first year we did it, we had 80 people. Last year we had 150 people. This year we're planning for 200 plus people, and our volunteer pool has grown every year because as the church members have seen the successful nature of that event, they've been willing to get more involved in it and volunteer their time. So you may have this grand idea, but you may have to pare it down and start a little bit smaller. And then ask the question, will adding this event to our calendar have a high positive impact on our current ministries? What is going to be the fruit of this event? Adding it to the calendar. What is the goal of the event? The educator in me says you should always have an objective and measurable goal. What's the win look like? If we're going to do this, how do we evaluate it at the end to say we were either successful or we were not successful? If we don't have any measurable objective goals and we can't see how it's going to impact our current ministries, then it may be something that we don't add to the calendar. So I'm going to give you some steps for creating your church calendar. The first step is to coordinate with the state calendar. Each of us have our local ministry contexts, and those are so valuable and important to us. I believe that none of our churches are where they are at by mistake. I believe that none of our pastors are where they are at by mistake. Each of you are planted within a specific community, a specific zip code, because that is where God wants you to minister. But we are also a part of a corporate state body as well. And we have some state level ministries. And it can become very confusing for our church members if there is a state event that conflicts with a church event. I don't know that this has specifically happened, but if there is a women's conference at Camp Nikayo in the last weekend of April, and then your church also has a women's day the last weekend of April, that sends mixed messages to your women because they may have previously been to the state women's conference and they really enjoyed it and they want to participate, but now my church is having something that same weekend. So your first step in creating a good church calendar at a 12-month view is contact state office, specifically Sister Carol. She works with all of those dates and has all those dates. Say, hey, what is on the calendar for 2026? Let me know what those dates are. I'm going to get them on the calendar first so that there is not a conflict. And you might also find in doing that, hey, because the state is doing this ministry, that may actually take something off my plate, right? Church Alive doesn't plan a yearly women's conference. We have some women's days throughout the year, but we don't need to plan a big weekend women's conference because the state has already taken that off our plate. It's not a burden to have a partnership with state ministries. It's actually a blessing. It's taking something off the plate of the pastor. It's taking something off the plate of the church to say, hey, all we have to do is get there and show up. All we have to do is talk about it and make sure that we're available for that. So some things to think about. Is it going to be a convention year? What are those dates? When is women's conference? When is Oasis? When is youth camp, men's conference, marriage retreat? Is there a pastor's conference? Is there a worship conference? I'm putting Empower on there as well. That's a new ministry for our state. Is it a year for the International Assembly? We want to make sure that we get all of those things on our church calendar and communicate those in advance to our church members. Because again, people cannot attend something that they do not know about. And we are out of the season where we can communicate things a week in advance or 2 weeks in advance or even a month in advance. I can say as a father with 2 young kids, we book our calendar at least 3 months in advance. If you're asking me to do something next week or 2 weeks from now or a month from now, 9 times out of 10, it's already booked. It's already covered up between work, between church, between family. And so if we're wanting involvement from young families, we've got to have that in mind as well. So then your steps 2, that is when you personally, as the pastor or as the leader at your church, you sit down with your church calendar and you plan out things on your calendar that you want your church to be doing throughout the year. And this is where you need to think about just some natural rhythms in a yearly calendar. When are your major holidays? Look to see where Easter is. It's different every year. Easter is the most difficult holiday to plan for because some years it's in March, some years it's in April. But that's a big deal for our churches. And in the years where it is in March, that means that we have to get prepared quicker for that major thing. So we need to know that in advance. Think about Memorial Day. Don't plan something big on Memorial Day weekend because we know traditionally church attendance is going to be down because you have your families that are getting that 3-day weekend. They're taking vacation time. Not a good weekend to have a huge event at your church. Think about Mother's Day, Father's Day. Is your church going to have a VBS? Are you going to block off a week in July or August or September, whenever is best for your church? And what outreaches are you going to build into the rhythm of your church? With Easter, are you doing a Easter egg hunt on that Saturday or on that Sunday? Are you doing a fall festival? Are you doing a back to school bash? Are you having movie nights at your church? Think about these things in advance so that you can get them on the calendar. One thing that I put on here is pastoral vacation. When you are sitting down to make your yearly calendar, that's a wonderful time for you as a pastor to block off a week of time for you and your family to take a vacation. Because if you don't put it on the calendar, it's not going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, it's a short fuse between now and when you're burnt out. Your church will survive for a week without you. You need to plan your vacation and communicate it with the leaders of your church. Say, hey, we're going off the grid this week. You know, if you don't have deacons, I strongly suggest you find some men and women who can serve as deacons and say, hey, I tell my congregation the week before we go on vacation, if you need something this week, you can call Kenny Richardson, you can call Steve Barnes, you can call Sherry Barnes. They are your deacons in this church. Don't call my family. And it's not to be hateful or rude to my congregation, but my family has to be my first priority. And that is protected time. 1 week, 2 weeks out of the year, that is not too much to ask for from your church to say, hey, unless everything just falls apart, and I mean, Jesus is coming back, then you can call me. But other than that, let's protect this time for the pastor. Put it on your calendar in advance. Communicate it with your church. Think about some of the rhythms that are in the Church of God of Prophecy that aren't necessarily events to attend, but are focuses for your church. 21 days of prayer and fasting. Put that on your church calendar. Plan for it and prepare for it. It happens in January every single year. Think about September as Membership Matters Month. Think about October as Pastoral Appreciation. Put those things on the calendar so that your people are aware of them. And then one of the things that I do on our calendar is I put blackout dates. We're not putting anything on the calendar on these dates. The Saturday before Mother's Day is off limits at Church Alive. We don't do anything on that. Saturday before Memorial Day, off limits at Church Alive. We're not planning any events on that. And again, it's not to be hateful or restrictive. It's to think about the fact that's not a good day to have something. And so when you put those things on there, hey, we're strategically not doing anything on our church calendar on these days. It protects your leaders and it protects your members. So I have given you, yeah, go for it.
Been a problem for us. We have 3 different school districts attend our church, and we're just getting ready to add the 4th school district.
Yeah.
Different counties will be coming to our church, and spring break has been a big issue.
Yeah.
The thing now I do is get on the website for all these schools and find out when their spring break and fall break.
Yeah.
Fall breaks are scheduled.
Yeah, that's a great note.
Events and had 2 or 3 families not come because they're at the beach at spring break.
Yeah, and that's a great thing to bring up. And depending on your ministry context, that may be spring break and fall break may be a detractor for ministry. It could also be a boost of ministry. If you are in a high poverty area, those families are not going to the beach on spring break. Those kids have nothing to do that week. So that may be a great time for your church to do a spring VBS or a fall VBS or something like that. But you have to know the context of ministry that you're in.
My problem is I have a number of school district employees as well, so they're all
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and planning for those and kind of being aware of that as a pastor, knowing, hey, I'm going to go into this Sunday and it's okay, but attendance is going to be a little bit down. And that's okay because just as you need to take a vacation, your families in your congregation need to take a vacation. That doesn't mean we close the church. That just means we protect our mind and our heart. I'm not going to be discouraged this Sunday because, half of my church is gone. They're coming back next week. They're going to be back. They're just taking vacation, and that's okay. So it doesn't matter to me the format of your calendar. I like to use Canva because it's very easy to get on there and edit, but it can be a paper calendar that you handwrite and that you hand out to people. It can be a digital calendar. You may do something on Google Calendar. Your website may have a calendar function where you can add the dates in there as well. It doesn't really matter the format of it. It just matters that you have it and that it is accessible. So I gave you just a glimpse of the May calendar for Church Alive from this last year. You'll notice those X's on there. Those were those blackout dates that I was talking about. And that will become a little bit more clear in just a moment as well. But ideally, you would have step 2 completed by the beginning of November. And I'm telling you this in the middle of September, so that means that if you don't have one, you've got a month and a half to do steps 1 and steps 2. And it won't take you very long to do that, so don't be stressed about it. And the reason that I say have it done by the beginning of November, step 2, is because step 3 is where you are going to present the ministry calendar to the leaders in your church. We're not presenting this to the members of the church. We are presenting this now to the leaders, your children's pastors, your worship leader, your youth pastor, your senior ministry leader, your women's director, men's director, whoever you have in leadership positions. We always have a leadership meeting in November. just for our church leaders, and we vision cast for the next year. So November 16th, that's our date for Church Alive, where we're going to meet together as the leaders. I'm going to present the calendar to our leaders. Hey, these are the things that are already on the calendar, and we'll talk about those things. We'll work through them, and then we will communicate with those ministry leaders. If there is a date that is available, that is open for you to schedule something on the calendar, but you have to go through the event request process. And we need that from you as a leader by December. Okay, so we need you now to kind of digest this 12-month calendar that we've already got state events on, we've already got some major church events, and if you're wanting to have a women's day or a men's day or a special kids event or a family night, that's great. If you see open dates, that means those are open, but we need to get those dates on the calendar quickly so that we can be prepared for January 1. I would highly suggest, if you're the lead pastor at your church, to consider designating a scheduling point person that is not you. Spend time with that scheduling point person so that they will understand your mindset and your heart and your thought process behind this, so that then they can take that off of your plate. So when people want to schedule things at Church Alive, they don't come to Stetson Harper. They go to Miranda Harper. Now, I would like to have a situation where it's not my spouse who is the scheduling point person either, but we're in a growing season at Church Alive. There will come a day where Miranda does not have to be the scheduling point person. But that's something that she does so that I, as the pastor, the spiritual leader, the guy who's got to preach and deliver the word on Sunday morning, I'm not getting inundated with schedule requests. Those all go to Miranda, and she either approves or I don't even want to say denies them, because it's never typically it's not a hard denial. It's, hey, that's not a good date. What about this date for this event as well? She handles all of that so that it doesn't have to get onto my plate. So I strongly suggest you find somebody. That's a great job for a trustworthy deacon in your church. If you can pass that off, train them on it, and sit with them, let them know what your mindset is behind it, and then just say, hey, that sounds like a great idea. I'm not the guy you need to talk to. You need to talk to Deacon Joe, because he handles our schedule and event requests.
I have a question real quick.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
You're talking about the Facebook page. We don't have it right now. But if you did, do you post your calendar publicly, and do you do it just monthly, or would you do it a whole full year if it's available for the whole community to know ahead?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we will post a yearly calendar at the beginning of the year. And then as the year kind of progresses, things can fall off of that. So in June, I don't need to have to sift through the calendar for January, February, March, April, and May. They're done. They're gone. So I can delete those off of it. So now all you're seeing is June to the end of the year. And then one thing that we try to do every Sunday at the end of service, we announce whatever dates are active for that month. So be considering these dates. And when we get to the end of the month, we start talking about the next month as well. But yes, we keep those on our website, on Facebook, and major events we create a Facebook event for, because there's an invite function on that where you can invite people. And then even if they just say, oh, I'm interested in this, every time you post in that Facebook event, it sends a notification to their account. Oh, Church Alive has posted an update for Fall Festival 2025, and it is in their notification feed. Great question. This is not a hard set rule. This is just something that we do at Church Alive. And I apologize, it's a little small on here, but it is in the back of your packet as well. This is a Church Alive ministry event request form. This is something that I created last year to help streamline the ministry event process. Even in creating a yearly calendar, there are going to be things that get added to your calendar throughout the year. Okay, that's just unavoidable. Things pop up, and that's not a bad thing. I had a principal contact me on Monday of last week said, hey, we have an open house at our school on Thursday night. We want Church Alive to be there and set up a booth so that you can talk to all of our families in our school. That was not on our calendar, but that was a huge open door to have a public school with over 500 students say, we want your church to be here. We moved things around on the schedule. We made sure that we were there. So there's going to be things that pop up. And they're going to pop up for your ministry leaders, for your men's and your women's and your kids. So when that happens, we have our leaders fill out this ministry event request form that forces them to go through the mindset that we have as leaders and pastors when putting something on the calendar. So they have to answer some basic questions. What's the name of the event, the start time, the end time? What is the purpose of the event? How does it fit into the mission statement of Church Alive? Is it going to help us know God, make disciples, or serve the world? And that's there intentionally, because if the leader gets to that point and they're like, oh, it doesn't help us do any of those three things, 9 times out of 10, that's where they stop filling out the form and you never even hear about it, okay? Because they already filtered it out themselves. Then we ask the question, what Church Alive facilities do you need access to? Is this just a fellowship hall? Is this a sanctuary? Do you need access to the kitchen? Is there going to be food served? What equipment do you need to use from the church? Tables, chairs, all of those things. And then section 2, I have there to fill out only if the event is going to have a guest speaker. I require from my leaders at any time they have an event where they are requesting a guest speaker, they have to get my approval on that guest speaker before they make contact with that person. Not, oh, I asked Sister so-and-so from such and such church to come. Now, I already talked to her pastor. Is that okay? That's not how we do things. They have to ask me first. And that's because I know that as pastor, there's going to be some things that I know that my members don't know. There are going to be some things as pastor of your church that you know that they don't know. And part of our job as the pastor and the shepherd is to protect the flock. And that means that we have to be mindful of who we are allowing to come into our churches and minister to our people. And it's not that anybody in your leadership is trying to subvert your authority. They're just probably not thinking about it because they're not the pastor. They're not the shepherd of the church. Those are not things that they are naturally will think about. But it's a mindset that you need to have in your church if it's not already there. We have to get approval before we ask somebody, because there may be something going on and that's just not a good fit. And then section 3, that's for the schedule point person to fill out, where they can either just approve it and sign it, give it back, or they can make a suggestion for another date. It's not something that you have to do. It's just a system that we've added at Church Alive that has helped with some of that. So, guiding question for you. Consider how some of your ministries in your churches are going to pull from the same pool of congregants and the same pool of volunteers. Too many options will overwhelm people who would have participated if the calendar had not been so saturated, which could lead to poor participation. Okay? I really want that to sink in for you. If you put too many things on your church calendar, they could all be top tier events. But if you have something on your church calendar every weekend of every month, guess what? People are going to stop showing up to everything because they're going to be so overwhelmed and they're going to feel badly about showing up to some things and not to other things. And so when I feel bad about being able to show up to some and not to other, I just stop showing up altogether. Okay? This is specifically impactful for your families with young children, with school-age children, with high school-age children. Their schedules are already packed with sports schedules and friends' birthday parties and all of these things. If you give them too many options, they are not going to come to anything. So be mindful, be strategic, be willing to eliminate something from your calendar so that it's not overwhelming. And be mindful of your volunteers as well, because Sister Jane, who's faithful, she comes and works in the kitchen for the Ladies' Day. And she shows up and she works at children's ministry. And she's here for Wednesday night Bible study. And she's willing to help clean the church when there's an event. Sister Jane's tired. And she's a high-value volunteer that you may end up losing if you overuse her because you have so saturated your church calendar. So then step 4 is this is where you get to communicate with the church. And I have here early and often. And this is kind of to your question as well. Your members of your church need to be as aware of the church calendar as early as possible so that they can put it on their calendar as well. And also understand that not every church member is going to show up to everything that you have. And that's okay, because again, they have their own schedules as well. But think about how you're communicating it to them. We do this a couple of different ways at Church Alive. We always have announcement slides running in the sanctuary before service starts. We don't do bulletins, but a lot of churches like to have bulletins. If you have an elderly congregation, it may just be that you make 20 bulletins for the 20 senior saints that have been in your church that love a bulletin. You may not need to print 100. You may just need 20, and you can have somebody hand deliver those to them. Social media, which we're going to talk about a little bit later today, so I'm not going to go too in depth there right now. Do you have a system to send out group text messages? Do you have a way to send out a one call like the state does? But how are you going to communicate it? You know, we had the Healthy Church Dynamics here a few weeks ago, and one of the things that they pointed out is that every time you need to communicate something, you need to communicate it 6 different times in 3 different ways. Okay? 6 different times in 3 different ways. Okay? Let me use today just as an example. You got a phone call, you got an email, and it was posted on social media. Those are my 3 different ways. I did all of those things 2 times. I sent out 2 phone calls, I sent out 2 emails, I posted to social media 2 times. That makes sure that I'm hitting all of my demographics. Okay? And you may even communicate it more than 6 times. It's not saying that once you've done that, you're absolutely done communicating. It's saying that's the bare minimum. You need to communicate 6 different times in 3 different ways, or you're going to have people who show up. Well, Pastor, I didn't know. I had no idea. And I know as a pastor, that's one of the most frustrating things to hear. Well, we put it, it's been in the bulletin for 4 months. Yeah, but that's the only place you put it. And your 30-year-old mom is not picking up the bulletin. Okay, so how are we communicating those things? And then one of my kind of mantras is that when you think you have communicated your message, it is only then that people are really starting to digest what you have told them. When you think, I've knocked it out of the park, I have communicated this well, you are just at the starting line of when people are really beginning to digest what you are communicating. You should communicate it so much that you yourself get tired of hearing about it. Okay? It lives in your brain Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday, rent-free. It's always in your brain. It is not always in the brain of the people that you're communicating it to. So you have to feel like I've over-communicated. People are tired of hearing about it. They're not tired of hearing about it. You're tired of talking about it because you've communicated it so much. But because you have communicated it so much, that means your people actually know what's going on. Okay? You cannot just say it one time and then move on. Okay, so this brings us to some strategic event planning. So calendar has been created. We have it on the schedule. It has been communicated with our people. Now what? Because the major events of your church, they are not happening by accident. And we have all probably been in the moment where we got a week or 2 weeks out from a really important event that we've actually been communicating, and we go, oh no, I have not done anything for this. I haven't written the devotion or the message. I haven't sent out the flyers. I haven't purchased the decorations. I don't even know if my volunteers are, oh no. This is 2 weeks away. People know that it's happening, but we are not prepared for this. And so this is where I want you to maybe learn a new phrase called backwards design. Okay, everybody say backwards design.
Backwards design.
Okay, backwards design is where we think about what the end goal is, when the end goal will happen. If it's an event, it's a specific date, and then we design backwards from there. Okay, so right now, you should be backwards designing Christmas. Okay, we are 3 months-ish from Christmas, one of the busiest, most high-value seasons for church ministry. If you are not backwards designing Christmas in September and October, the likelihood is you are going to get to December and you are going to have one of those, oh no moments. Okay, I'll be vulnerable for a second. I had this oh no moment last year because I didn't backwards design the Christmas season well enough. And I got to the first Sunday of Advent and I said, oh no, we don't have Advent candles. Now, not the biggest disaster in the world, but I know that the Church Alive members really enjoy that moment in the Christmas season where there's an Advent reading and the Advent candle is lit. That may or may not be something that you do in your church. I'm not saying you have to or that you don't have to. It was a oh no moment for Stetson because I got to December and I realized, okay, Family Christian is closed. They're no longer in business. Lifeway doesn't have any brick and mortar stores. I looked on Amazon, 2-day shipping wasn't available for Advent candles. It was a 2-week wait time because it was December. And there were probably some other pastors who had a oh no moment. So we need to be thinking about these things in advance and backwards planning. List all of the things, every little last thing that needs to be done for that event. And then pull your calendar back out and say, okay, on this date, I'm doing these 2 things for this event. On this date, I'm doing these 2 things. This needs to be done earlier, so I'm putting it earlier on my calendar. This can be done later, so I'm putting it later on my calendar. I'm assigning it a specific day, so I don't have to get everything done in one day, but I can look at my planner and I can know, okay, Tuesday, this day, I just need to do 2 things for Christmas. I mark those 2 things off in 30, 45 minutes. I'm good to go. I know it's going to be done. So some things to think about. Events like Fall Festival, Easter egg outreach, Christmas. Are you doing a revival at your church? You may have other events. These are just some of the things that we do at Church Alive, but you may have other things that are built into the culture and the rhythm of your church that you need to be mindful of. But sit down, identify those major events that take additional planning for you. And this is also a good time to practice delegation. When you assign it a specific date, that's a great time to say, hey, Deacon Joe, you can do this. Okay, I want you to take this for this event. Hey, worship leader or children's pastor, this is I'm giving you one thing to do. This is what I need you to do for this event. I need it done by this date. Let me know when it's done. But you can't delegate if you don't backwards plan. Or I should say you can't delegate well if you don't backwards plan. So I gave you some examples, and this is in the slide handout, but it's also in the back of your handout in full print version. So this is just an example of how I did a backwards design plan for the Church Alive Fall Festival. So you will notice that there is a long list of things that need to be done, and the start date is September 10th, and the end date is October 29th. That's because the event happens on November 1st. So the entire month of September and the entire month of October, I have specific tasks assigned to specific dates on my personal calendar or on the calendar of one of our leaders to accomplish. That's a lot of stuff to do for one event, but I'm not stressed about it because I know that everything that needs to be done has a specific date assigned to it. And I did that in looking at my calendar, knowing on this day, I will have an hour or 2 hours set aside to work on this event. And it is everything from I need to get the budget approved to creating social media images, to printing flyers, to reserving the bounce house that we are going to have. That was on my to-do list for yesterday. I was on the phone with the guy with the bounce house yesterday saying, hey, you were there last year. We want you there again on November 1st. Good, done. Check it off. I don't have to worry about everything else on the list right now because I did the tasks for September 17th. Okay, it relieves some of the stress. This is part of what I do for the planning of Fall Festival as well. I create a map of the event. I got this off of Google Images or Google Maps. I literally just put in my church's address. I clicked satellite view. I took a screenshot and I zoomed in. Okay, and then I put it into Google Slides and I created some text boxes, filled it with a background color, and then titled what each of those areas are. I do this to give to our volunteers. Okay, this doesn't go out necessarily to our attendees, but this goes to our volunteer team so they will know where everything is happening during the event, because we're also going to assign volunteers to each of those places, to face painting, to pumpkin painting, to coloring, where our food table is going to be, where is the cakewalk going to happen. And one of the questions that your volunteers are going to ask you is, Pastor, where is my station set up? Because for them, that's the most important thing that's happening during that event. And it should be for them because they are prepared for it. They have been given the responsibility of it. And you can mitigate some of those conversations if you just say, here's the event map, look at the map, see where you're supposed to be, okay? Put it on your backwards plan, create it, and then you have it moving forward. Also gave you an example plan of planning the Easter weekend. So things that I put on here are we going to have a yard sign? We don't have a great sign right now at Church Alive, and to replace it is going to be really expensive. It's something that we're working towards. But last year we ordered a 4-foot by 8-foot double-sided thick vinyl sign that we could put in the yard, and it cost us $230. Okay, not free, but a lot cheaper than a $30,000 digital sign. It's a good option for us right now. And so, think about that. Do I need to order stuff? If you've got print materials that you need to order, you need to be putting that on your schedule a month, 2 months in advance so that you don't get to the moment of saying, oh no, I don't have this. And there are some, like Staples will do quick printing for you, but it's going to cost you 2 or 3 times as much as it will if you order from a website that can give you a lead time of 2 or 3 weeks. Are you going to have a picture backdrop for Easter? Okay, that's something that people love to do on Easter weekend. Who's going to be in charge of that picture backdrop? Put it on the backwards plan. What flyers are you going to have? Are you going to have eggs and candy for the egg hunt? Are you going to order palm branches for Palm Sunday? People at Church Live, they love to have real palm branches for Palm Sunday. There's a company that will ship. You can order it 3 months in advance and schedule your delivery day. I want these delivered the Friday before Palm Sunday. And you check it off your to-do list. And then they come in, your people have real palm branches to wave as you're singing Hosanna, Hosanna on Palm Sunday. It's a great impact, but if you don't plan for it, it's not going to happen. And then one of the things you'll see on here, cookies. Why do we do that? On Easter Sunday, we always have a grab-and-go treat at the end of service. And we plan for that because we know we're going to have visitors on Easter Sunday. And we want that experience for the visitor to be as high value as possible. We've found that one of the cheapest ways to do this is we go to Sam's Club and we get those big trays of cookies. They're like $15, $20. We buy 2 trays of those. And then on Amazon, we order sealable cookie bags. And we have our seniors, during one of their Bible studies before Easter weekend, they put on plastic gloves. And after their Bible study on Wednesday morning, they put a cookie in each of those little bags. And they seal it, and then we order Church Alive stickers, and we put right on there. Then when people leave Easter service on Sunday morning, they get a grab-and-go treat with a Church Alive sticker on it. Looks really high value. Altogether, it costs us like $70 to do it. But again, can't do those things if you're not planning for them in advance. Talked about Christmas. This is on here for Stetson. Order Advent candles and wreaths by November 5th to make sure it is there. What about your communion supplies? Do you do the cups that you fill yourself, or do you do those prepackaged ones that have the 2 layers of plastic? You may be thinking, oh, I've got some from Easter. They probably don't taste that great. Order some new ones. And again, don't wait until December, because 80% of pastors are waiting until December. Yeah. and then you're dealing with all those people that are in that oh no situation. And the orders are getting overwhelmed, and it's not going to be to your church on time. And then something that I created this year, we're having our first revival at Church Alive. Okay, so I created a backwards plan for revival. What are all the things that I need to do to make sure that revival goes off without a hitch? So I have things on here like lodging for the evangelist. And this is for a revival that is actually next weekend. So last week of September, I secured the lodging for my evangelist in July. Evangelist questionnaire. I sent that. I had a phone call with the evangelist on August 1st. And we'll look at that on the next slide. Are we going to have a hospitality team for one of the nights? Are we going to serve any snacks or drinks? Ultimately, we decided not to because we felt like that was going to be too much of a stressor on the volunteers that would be doing it. And we wanted, because it was going to be the same 3 or 4 people who are always doing something. And we wanted them to just be able to come to revival at their own church that weekend and not have to worry about making food for people. But you may have that. Create a Facebook event. I created a Facebook event on August 6th, almost 2 full months before the event. Have an event flyer with the evangelist information, August 6th. Create various graphics promoting the revival. And then send communications to area churches. Some of you have probably gotten my emails about the revival at Church Alive. If you're in the Louisville area, I want local other Church of God of Prophecy churches to know what's going on. Doesn't mean you have to come if you're Church of God of Prophecy church, but hey, if you don't have anything on your church calendar and you want to come to revival and you don't have to do anything for it, you can just show up and be ministered to. So I had a plan to send emails and flyers to those pastors in the Louisville area, creating a church promotional video, creating TikTok videos, and we'll talk about that in our later session today as well. We have a Hispanic church that rents from us. They typically have church on Saturday nights and on Sunday nights. So I wanted to make sure I communicated with them in advance so that they knew, hey, you can just come. We're going to have translation for you. We're going to make sure that you can just come and be ministered to that night. The main thing is have a plan. Look at the event, list out all of the things that you need to do for that. I'm not saying that this is a foolproof plan. I'm just saying make a plan, because if you don't have a plan, it's going to get away from you. But I did also give you an example questionnaire for a visiting minister. These are some things that I like to ask when I have a visitor coming in. This is the first time I've done it for revival, but coming out of 8 years of camping ministry and youth director from the Great Lakes, these are things that I would ask when we would bring in a camp evangelist. Do you have any food restrictions? Do you have any food allergies? Or are there just things that you don't like to eat? Okay, hopefully you're planning on taking care of your visiting minister's meals throughout that event. You need to know what they like and what they don't like. If you've got somebody who can't stand Chinese food, but you love the Chinese buffet in your community, don't take them to the Chinese buffet. And guess what? They're not going to tell you once they get there. They're not going to say, oh, Pastor, I really don't like Chinese. They're just going to go and suffer through the meal. Ask them in advance. Ask them what their travel plans are. Are they driving? Are they flying in? Will their family or their kids be accompanying them? I have an evangelist coming next weekend. He's got 4 kids. Only 2 of them are coming with them. Okay, that's good to know. That helps me know what I need to book for you as far as lodging. I even get so specific as, do you prefer a handheld microphone or do you prefer a lapel microphone? Some people don't care, but some people are very particular. And it's just really good information to have before the night of revival to be able to share with my sound and media team. Hey, Pastor Josh is going to use the lapel microphone. Let's make sure that we have that ready for him. Would you like water or juice available while you're preaching? Again, some preachers have a preference. They may want a glass of cranberry juice or a glass of apple juice while they're preaching instead of water. Those are just some considerate questions to ask. What are some of your favorite foods and snacks? Ask that question so that in advance you can go out and just put together a little welcome basket. Okay, if you're reserving a hotel room for them, you can go to the hotel, get access to the room, drop off the welcome basket. It'll be there when they walk in. It's gonna be, oh my gosh, they appreciate me. They love me so much. They are so glad that I'm here. It's an investment into that minister. Request a bio from them so that when you get up to introduce them, you are not winging it. And you're not telling some story from 30 years ago when you guys were campers at Camp Nikayo, and if you're my dad, he's, putting frogs in the women's bathroom. That's not the story to tell right before they get up to preach, right? That's not the introduction to give them. Ask for that bio so that you can highlight their ministry and their professional experience, which really kind of sets the tone for the congregation. this is somebody who can be trusted. This is somebody who is vetted to minister to you tonight. Ask them, will they be using any media? Do they have any videos that they are going to be playing for an illustration or for their sermon? Again, you don't want to find this out at 6 o'clock on Friday night and service starts in 30 minutes and their video file is on a USB drive and your MacBook doesn't have a USB port. That's not when you want to find that out. You want to find it out in advance. Ask those questions. What are their sermon titles? What are their scripture references? So you can make, if they're not coming with a slideshow or a PowerPoint presentation, you can make sure your media team has that in advance, get all of these scriptures inputted so that they are ready to go. And then at Church Alive, we have two options for a preaching platform. I like to preach from it's called a pub table. It's not from an actual pub, but it's just a standing height flat table. I prefer that over a traditional podium because I usually speak from my iPad, which has a built-in easel for it. So I just set that right on top of the table, but I also have a traditional pulpit. If somebody is more comfortable with that, I ask that in advance so that I know. This can be a phone call conversation. It can also be something that you create into a Google form, or you can just send these questions via email. But it's just a good practice to have to get in the habit of asking questions. And you may even think of some other things to add to that as well. And then think about some information to share with the visiting minister. Share with them what their lodging accommodations are going to be. Share with them how and when they will receive their honorarium. Most visiting ministers are not going to ask you for an offering, right? They're not going to say, hey, I'll come and do this revival, but my cost is $500 for the weekend. Most people are not going to do that, but it is standard practice and it is biblical to give honor to those who are teaching and preaching and ministering in the word. You need to have a plan for that. So part of Church Alive's plan, we have an online giving platform. We know that there are going to be some people who throughout the weekend give online. We're going to communicate with our evangelist, hey, we are going to mail you a check the week after revival so that we can make sure we get you the correct amount. We need to make sure that we have appropriate time to get the digital funds and to get the in-person funds counted and all of that. We're going to get it to you, but we're going to mail it to you in a check. And depending upon the size of it, you may also need to have them fill out tax information as well, because if it's over $600, then you've got to report that, and they have to report it as well. And so having that conversation, share with them what type of attire the congregation is used to. I'm going to be at Russell Springs this weekend. I had a conversation with Pastor Dallas. I said, hey, I'm comfortable preaching in a full suit. I'm comfortable preaching in sneakers and jeans. It makes no difference to me, but you need to communicate that with the evangelist. Don't make them, don't take this the wrong way, Pastor Dallas. I'm just saying, just communicate that with them in advance so that they know, so that when they're packing, because I know as a visiting minister, if I show up in a suit and tie and everybody else is in jeans and t-shirts and maybe Billy just came in from driving the combine tractor in the field and here I am in a nice three-piece suit, I'm not relatable to Billy. And I can have the best sermon, but there's going to be an additional barrier to reaching Billy. Also, though, I have gone to churches where everybody dresses to the nines. I mean, you bring out your very best. If I show up to that church and I'm preaching in jeans and a t-shirt, they're not going to hear a word that comes out of my mouth. And I actually run the risk that I might get there and the pastor says, you're not preaching because you haven't shown correct reverence for our worship gathering. So just share that with the evangelist in advance. I also like to share with visiting ministers how the congregation best responds to an altar time. Okay, are your people used to having a team of people who are ready to receive them in prayer, or are they used to just coming up and kneeling at the altar? Are they used to a general altar response, or do they like more pointed, specific, hey, if you're struggling with X, Y, and Z, come and receive prayer for that? That's important for a visiting minister. They don't know your ministry context like you do. You do those things naturally as a pastor. You need to share those things with your visiting evangelist. And then share with them in advance what the service schedules are and when and where the pre-service meeting is going to be. I'm not going to say if there's a pre-service meeting, because I'm going to say you should be having a pre-service meeting, especially when you are doing a special event, you have a visiting minister, just to make sure that everybody who is a part of it is aware of where they are supposed to be, when they're supposed to be, what their time allotment is, so that things flow smoothly. Let them know those things in advance. Okay, I have 5 minutes left on here. Questions, comments, things that were unclear.
Could I make a comment?
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm gonna get up here so it can be heard on video. So one thing that I thought about, Pastor Stetson, is some folks in here may not be wired like you,
Mm-hmm.
that are really organizationally minded.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to tell you this, tell all of you, and he would agree that somebody in your church is.
Yeah.
Right? There are people, they are wired they're very organizationally minded. They're very gifted in that. And sometimes they may even come across as like a little difficult sometimes because you're doing things and they're like, well, what's the schedule? But see, that's just how they're wired. Those are the people that you want to get involved. If you're not this person, if you're not like Pastor Stetson, you can get other people involved that are, okay? And you can get them to come alongside you and assist you, and they will be so fulfilled.
Yeah.
They will be so fulfilled. Yes.
An hour ago, I thought I was a really organized person.
We all need to be
You're hiding behind the dishes. The only thing I did was got his room.
No, and I will say Pastor Dallas has done a wonderful job preparing for us, and please don't, this had really nothing to do with coming. This was my mindset in how I was planning for what we're doing, and I describe myself as a type A personality, and I even go so far as to say I am Times New Roman font type A personality. I am very my mom and dad would say that I'm just almost too critical to a fault, that I look at details like this, but it just helps me not be stressed about it. Okay, because when I make these plans and I have them, it's like I don't have to do it all today. It's going to get done because I've assigned it to a specific day. So in the back of your pamphlet, you have some of the things that you saw on the screen as just a printout, so it's a little bit easier to read. You also have the QR code. It's on the screen. It's also in your handout. So if you don't get it scanned right now, that's okay. That QR code will take you to a Google Drive that all of the printed material that you have in there, you will have in that location as well. And you can make a copy of it. You can edit it. You can apply it to your context. You can look at it just as an example or as a resource. But that's just something that I wanted to give to you so that you're not having to start from scratch and create something from nothing. So thank you so much for your participation and your time. Yes, sir.
I just met you today, and I'm not, but I'm really impressed at your organizational skills.
Oh, thank you, sir.
I really think we had a leader meeting in our church here just this Sunday evening, and one of the things that really just was really loud in my spirit, I guess I would say, is that with this on the heels of this Charlie Kirk thing, we are, and I told our pastors this. I said, we have to be, because on the heels of this, churches are going to be flooded with people.
Mm-hmm.
But in this generation that's going to be flooding the church, it's not like the generation that it was in 2001.
Right.
So what they're going to look for is a church that's organized.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not organized and we don't have it together, they're going to go somewhere that is organized and together.
Absolutely.
We believe in what we're preaching, but if we don't present it in an organized fashion,
Mm-hmm.
if they don't know what's going on, nobody's going to want to walk into chaos.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
Absolutely.
So what
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. All right.
Maybe you don't have a room full today, there's a lot of empty seats, but you keep doing what you're doing, God will fix it.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that, brother.
Another thing, in Dad's church, I guess you could say it's the old way. You got the word of mouth, which, as Tina knows, it's the ladies of the church. It's a bunch of big mouth women. What you say will be held against you. I just tell them I love them.
Brother, I'm gonna have to go over there and say it.
Tina knows it. I mean, you go up there and you tell one lady at that church what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
She makes it her point. She goes around. And
Yeah.
and gets the message out.
Yeah. Well, and you know what I like to do with that individual is I like to make them a valued partner in ministry, because then what happens if I can get Sister So and So, who she gonna tell everybody, if I've got a new ministry initiative, if I can get Sister So and So convinced it's her idea, if I can get her on board for it, I don't have to convince anybody. I convinced one person, she gonna do the rest for me. You know what I mean? Because she's going to go and talk to him, and she's going to make sure that they agree with her by the end of the conversation.
That's one, you're
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that will conclude our first session.